Hello, everyone, and welcome to class. My name is Temi Olajide Arishe, and I'm your facilitator for BUS818 Rewards and Compensation Management. It's so good to be in your midst again today. And we move on to lesson 5, and our topic for today is compensation design, philosophy, and types. And I welcome you all to class again. And the topics to be covered in this lesson are compensation design policies, basic essentials for compensation design, and lastly, components of compensation design. And the lesson objectives are as follows. You should be able to explain compensation design, describe compensation design policies, discuss the basic essentials of compensation design, and lastly, mention the components of compensation design. So basically, what do we understand by compensation design? And I know a lot of you, we all know what compensation is all about. So basically now we are just talking about the design. How can you design, a compensation package, basically relatively to, the term compensation. So compensation design determines the value of specific, properly executed accomplishments towards the achievement of desired outcomes. The value of the accomplishment, not the level of activity, is used to establish the nature and amount of compensation. Ultimately, compensation design should foster a productive and equitable long-term relationship among members and between each member and the organization. So compensation is based on the achievement of results that are critical to organizational success. Attracting, retaining, and motivating employees in today's business environment requires utilizing a host of tools, including base pay, incentive, equity, performance management, and benefits. So that brings me to the question now. We've been able to explain what compensation design is, but do you understand what compensation design? All these are just, so many words jumbled together. So let's break this into pieces. So what this is actually saying now is compensation design. We all know what compensation is. Compensation, it's usually, let's say, something, or in terms of monetary value, money you give to people, in compensating them for the work they have done. Do you understand? So you give money, for instance, you work in an organization. At the end of the month, you get paid. You are being compensated for the work you've done in that organization. So it can come in form of your salaries. Compensation can come in form of your incentive, maybe for instance, health benefits. Do you understand? Or health insurance, maybe car loans, maybe house loans, and all these things. All these are all compensation. You understand? So if we are going to impute the word design to it, we all know what a design is. A design is actually something that you actually construct or you structure, to your own taste or something like that, depending on whatever you're using it for. So compensation design has to be, monies that can be designed, for a particular purpose. For instance, now, if I work in an organization and the HR department, which is, that unit that actually does, that actually does the whole salary structure, compensation package, and all that stuff. So what they would do is to actually design, a compensation package. That's mostly when you are designing things like this, the first thing you are looking at is equality, to make sure that whatever you design, it's equal to all, that some people are not getting more than others, or depending on the grade structure or whoever that's compensation design that compensation is being designed for. So compensation design has to do with, designing compensation in terms of achievement of what people have already achieved. How can you design, these things that would actually meet up with their outcomes, or would actually commensurate with what responsibilities or roles that these employees are actually doing in that particular organization. So if we are going to design a compensation package, you understand, for some grade level, you will need to make sure that you design it commensurate to what they are doing in that organization. So if I have a set of maybe grade 2s, I'm not going to give some people more than others. I need to make sure that the package I'm designing, the compensation package I'm designing, is actually for grade 2s. I'm not saying, okay, because this person is my friend, she takes more, or this person is my enemy, he takes less, or all that stuff. So designing a compensation package, it helps, that structure where everything is actually equitable. That means it's equal across all board, you understand? So basically, that's what the compensation design is actually talking about. That's what the compensation design is, is actually talking about. And we move on to just a minute, please. Okay, so we move on to a second slide, which is talking about compensation design policy. And we are going to be talking about compensation design policy. And it states here that the following are the compensation design policies. So the first one we'll be having here is pay for the person rather than just the job. So for this design policy, when you are actually designing a compensation package, you need to pay for the person rather than the job, rather than just the job. Basically, when you are compensating the person, you need to look at, for instance, now, if I have people that are actually 50 to, going towards retirement, they are in their 50s and clocking towards retirement, a different compensation and package should actually be designed for this set of people, because obviously they are tilting towards retirement, you understand? So in terms of health, maybe you do give them a compensation package of maybe going to be free access to gym, maybe, for instance, more health care. In terms of, they are aging, so obviously they would need to check, so many things concerning their body, because the body is not getting any younger, it's older, so they would need more medical attention to that, effect. So, you design it concerning that person, those set of people, not just the job they do, not based on the job. It should also be based on the person, the age brackets. If these ones are tilting towards retirement, okay, I think this package will be best for them in order to compensate them and the rest of it. So those are the set. Or maybe the person is already retiring, what compensation package do you want to give them? Okay, at their age now, what do you feel is okay for them? So you need to actually pay for the person. That's, look at that person, the things around them, what confirms them and all that, rather than the job they do. The second one we'll be talking about is built-in controls and cost constraint. So there should be a cost constraint and control mechanism system. When we talk about cost constraints, you should not overdo things in terms of your budget of, when you want to compensate people in monetary terms, you should not do things that are too outrageous. You should control whatever you are doing. It should be in a specific limit. There should be limitations to whatever you need to do. You don't go and do something that the company does not have the money to pay for. For instance, now, if you are a company and maybe you're generating like how many million profits in a year and all that stuff. You don't, even because you want to compensate, you don't go and say, okay, all members should then have will be given a compensation package to go to a club every weekend. You know, the cost of all these places are relatively high. Although you can put a limitations to say, okay, maybe once in a month or something. So you need to be able to cut your costs and, you know, control that, have that hold, you know, in whatever you do in the organization. Then thirdly, an understandable and equitable system. So when you are actually designing a compensation package, it should actually be, you know, equitable. We mentioned that, and it should be understandable. Employees, you know, should be able to understand that, you know, this is the design that is being meant for their grade, you know, and the system also should be very equitable. That means they should be, you know, should be distributed across board, you understand, so that there's a transparent system and people understand that, okay, when I get to this grade, this is what I'm entitled to. Okay, this is not what I'm entitled to. So once you understand that, you know what it's accrued to you, you know, when you get to a specific grade. So when they design such, you know, package, you know, or such compensation package, and people can know what they are accurate to at a certain level, you know, it's also a good, you know, way of doing things. So that's the third policy. And the fourth one is rewards for skill acquisition. Yes, there should also be, you know, a policy, you know, whereby rewards for skills acquisition should also be designed. That's okay. If you get a master's degree, okay, or if you learn so and so, or you are being certified in a particular, if you get a particular certification, this is what is being accrued to you. Yes, you know, so there should also, most organizations don't usually do that. They just feel that, oh, it's for your own benefit, not that of the organization. No, it's for the benefit of both the employee and also the organization. So these policies also, these policies also should be there. Then we have a management flexibility to assign a range of duties. Yes, so in this, you know, management has, you know, management should be flexible. You know, this policy, you know, has to do with managing duties, you know, of employees, and, you know, it has to be flexible also for employees. Then we also have internal equity among employees. So there should be that internal equity, you know, among the employees, and the equity in terms of whatever package they are paying and giving. It should be it should be ranged from a particular grade. It shouldn't be exceeding what, you know, another grade is being considered to collect. So there should be that equity, you know, that internal equity, and, you know, everybody should see that, you know, this is what I'm accrued to, you know, when I'm in this grade level. Then lastly, parallel career paths for managers and technical employees. So there should be that career path, everybody's career path, you know, should be parallel, in terms of, you know, how a parallel line is, you know, it links, you know, from one person to another, from one end to another rather. So that career path for managers and employees also, you understand, you know, there's that policy also that is being made. Then we move on to the basic essentials of compensation design. So the first one we have is link with productivity. And then basically, when we talk about link with productivity, it's some part of the total pay should be linked to productivity. Such link is necessary because workers expect a share in productivity gain. This will help to control labor costs. So compensation package should not just be basically just design. One of the basic essentials of compensation design is that when designing such package, it should also be linked to productivity of the employees. Some organization basically, once it comes to the end of the year, irrespective of whether you worked or not, you should get your bonuses and the rest of it. And why in some organization, it depends on how productive, the employee has been. So what they are trying to say here is that it should be linked to productivity. And even if they get the general compensation package and all that those ones that have shown more effort should, also be compensated differently, so that others too can put in more handwork or can put in more work, to attain organizational goals and objectives. So the second basic essential of compensation design is maintain real wages. At least part of the increase in the cost of living should be neutralized so as to protect the real wage of labor. DNS allowances are, used in countries like India for this purpose. So what they are trying to say is that you maintain the real wages. So even on compensation design, should also maintain real wages. The real wages should be maintained, and then other things can actually follow. And I know some organizations actually adopt, this type of design. Then we have the internal equity. We have internal equity. Internal equity implies a proper relationship between wages paid for different jobs within the company. So, for example, salary of a senior manager is lower than a manager. There is a lack of internal equity. Pay differential should be related directly to differential in job requirements. Fair pay differentials between jobs can be established with the help of job evaluation. So internal equity, so jobs of different grades level should be equal. You should not say you came as a senior manager and somebody that is a lower than a manager is not earning higher than someone that is a senior manager. I don't think it's ideal. So there has to be that internal equity. You understand? That's why job evaluation comes in, and I think we've talked about that in our lesson 5. So if you can go back and just read about what job evaluation entails, you'll be able to relate this to internal equity. Then number 4, we have the external competitiveness. Wages and salaries in the organization should be in line with wages and salaries for comparable jobs in other organizations. So when you are designing designing a compensation package, so you need also to look out, at your competitors and what they offer, those people of your grade level, so that at the end of the day, you won't have a turnover whereby people are going to other places that offer more pay. So you should be realistic in terms of knowing what your competitors actually pay their employees. Then we also have increments. And increment compensation policy can be good motivator if pay increases are linked with merit, yes. So, but annual increment should be partly be linked to seniority or years of service. So increment in terms of merit, for instance, if organizations usually do promotion exams, and when you write the exams and you do well, obviously it's by merit and you get the pay increment, which is something that is good. And some and others would have this increments by seniority. I know most federal organizations do that, whereby the older you are in the system, the more compensation you get in terms of wages, in terms of benefits, and the rest of it. Then lastly, we have a built-in incentive. Wages or salaries plan should contain a built-in incentive so as to motivate employees to perform better. So this built-in incentives would actually help employees, because anything that has to do with incentive, for instance, if I'm in an organization and they say if you meet your target every month, you will get 50% raise or bonus or something, you can imagine the way everybody will start working, because obviously that if you be able to meet that target and get that 50% bonus, or aside your salary, what that can do. It can actually help you with your financial obligations and all that. So this kind of structures should be made in organizations. And so I think we are done with the basic essentials of compensation design. And we move on to compensation design components. And what are compensation design components? So we're going to be looking at them. Under compensation design components, we have three aspects. We have the base pay, we have incentive program, and lastly, we have benefit program. So we are going to be talking about each and every one of these components. So the first one is base pay. And what is base pay? To determine the base pay, the following is to be taken into consideration. So when you want to determine a base pay in an organization, these are the things that needs to be taken into consideration. First, conducting job analysis and documenting job content. So you need to conduct a job analysis. That means for job analysis, you need to try as much as possible. Just a minute, please. Okay, so for job analysis, you will need to be able to know, specifically, you will need to be able to know specifically the kind of job, the contents of what the person you intend to hire, what the person will be doing for the organization. You need to be able to determine, the activities, the responsibilities, and all that. So that's what job analysis actually entails. Okay, so basically that's what job analysis. So, conducting a job analysis and documenting that job content, is what is under the base pay. These are one of the consideration of base pay. Then secondly, developing systematic base pay structure. So basically you want to actually develop a pay structure, a uniform pay structure, whereby what is accrued to different employees at different grade level. So that's another consideration. And thirdly, using market benchmark or job evaluation method. So all the market benchmark, market pricing, you need to look at what others too are actually paying out, to see how you can structure yours in that term. And fourthly, development of employer-specific base pay strategy. So yes, okay, using benchmark or job evaluation method. Then we move on to incentive program. Okay, so for incentive program. To develop the incentive program, the following must be taken into consideration. So the first one is developing motivating variable pay programs for production, office management, and sales. And that is tied to organizational strategies and goals to individual or team performance. So for this, you need to develop programs, for different units, per se, for different departments, depending on what they do. So when you develop such programs, your incentive programs, each and everybody knows what each of their departments is accrued to, in terms of and compensation component design. Then creating pay, the second one we have here is creating pay for performance system, including performance appraisal tools and merit increase guidelines. So this also, it's another component, another consideration under incentive program. Then lastly, we have benefit program. And the benefit program, to develop benefit program, the following must be considered: assessing employee satisfaction with your current benefit package through a benefit assessment survey. So basically what they are trying to say there is that for you to be able to know if the employees are satisfied with the compensation package or program, you need to carry out a survey. So carrying out the survey would actually let you know if they are satisfied or not. So if is there anything you need to change, or do you need to still maintain that system and all that stuff. Then lastly, under benefit program, analysis of current benefit offering and recommendation for effective benefit changes. So also, the program would also allow if there are any recommendations by employees, towards the betterment of the compensation, design. So I think yes, a compensation design. So we'll also talk about the okay. So I think we've come to the end of this particular lesson 5, which is compensation design. So if we go back, compensation design philosophy and type. So if we go back to the starting points of the slide, we talked about compensation design and what compensation design is all about. And we literally said that compensation design has to do with, trying to design a compensation package, that is suitable, to all employees. You understand, designing a base pay structure in terms of incentive, in terms of base pay, in terms of, so many other benefits and the rest of it, in an organization. So that's what we talked about compensation design. We also talked about the policies, and we mentioned different policies, different compensation design policies: pay for the person rather than just the job, built-in controls and cost constraints, and understandable and equitable system, rewards for skills acquisition, management flexibility to assign a range of duties, internal equity among employees, and lastly, parallel career paths for managers and technical. Just a moment, please. Okay, so sorry about that short interruption. So we also talked about the basic essentials of the compensation design. We talked it should be linked to productivity. And we also talked about maintain real wages, aside from, the normal salary being given, it shouldn't disrupt whatever compensation, you are supposed to give the employees. Then we have an internal equity. That means it should be equal, compensation should be equal, among a specific grade level. And external competitiveness also, they need to look out to see what their competitors are actually paying, specific people in that organization, and see how they can, structure theirs also, increments and built-in incentive. So basically, then we also talked about the compensation design components, and we said we had three major components, which is the base pay, incentive program, and benefit programs. And we spoke about all this, relatively. So the summary of this lesson, basically, we should learn compensation design policies, the basic essentials of compensation design, and lastly, components of compensation design. So I don't know if organizations usually have structures of compensation design. I know relatively big companies usually have that, but small companies would not have, those structure, because they just feel that, oh, we are small, we are just 10, persons in the organization, or 20. So it depends on the sales we have. If we sell this year, okay, we will do something. And if not, it's your next year, or whenever we have the funds to do so. I don't think so. I just think there should be that design wherever you incorporate things like this into your organization, because at the end of the day, employees are people that work for you, and when you compensate them, even the littlest thing, they would appreciate it and all that stuff. So I think we've come to the end of this class. It's bye for now for me. I remain Temiola Jide Arishe, and if you have any questions, you can send me a mail via my email address, temirima@yahoo.com. So do have a nice day, and I see you at the top. Take care.